Welcome, hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm delighted to take you through this practical, on demand session for researching potential trust funders for your organisation. Don't worry, this isn't just about listening to me talking. We'll have some time for reflection and activities along the way. So grab your notebook or some paper and a pen, and we'll get started. In this session, we're going to explore three main things: tools and resources to help you find funders, how to assess whether a funder is a good match, and how to build a strategic approach to trust fundraising. We'll do that by including some power pauses where I'll give you key takeaways that you can write down and think about later, and also some pause and reflect moments where you'll complete short written tasks to help you put what you've just learned into context. A quick introduction to monetary fundraising for those who don't know us. For the last 14 years, we've been supporting charities like yours to increase their high value income. Our goal is simple: to help you build strong, sustainable fundraising that makes a real impact. Our expertise expands across major donor fundraising, trust fundraising, and capital appeals. If you're interested in finding out more about our services and how we can help you, our contact details will be available at the end of this webinar. Please do reach out. And who am I? Well, I'm Stacey, and for nearly 2 decades, I've been helping organisations like yours to secure funding from trusts and foundations. One of the biggest challenges I see is that charities either don't know where to start with their prospect research, or they take a scattergun approach to prospect researching, applying to as many trusts as possible without thinking about alignment. Today, we're going to focus on a smarter, more strategic approach to prospecting. So, what is a charitable trust? This might seem really basic, but I still think it's worth recapping what a charitable trust is, especially for those of you today who are joining us at the very start of their trust fundraising journey. As it says on the screen, a charitable trust is a legal entity set up to manage assets or funds for charitable purposes, providing grants to support organisations, projects, and sometimes individuals aligned with its specific objectives. Trust fundraising is, in its simplest terms, about applying to these charitable trusts for grants to support your organisation's needs, usually in the form of projects. There are thousands of trusts in the UK, which can be overwhelming when you first start your research, but the key is finding the right ones for your organisation. Trust funders come in many forms, and understanding their differences can help you when you're researching which trusts might be the best fit for your organisation. On the whole, family trusts often have personal or local priorities and value personal connections and projects with local emotional ties. Corporate foundations align their support to their corporate social responsibility or CSR goals. Personal connections or local relevance can strengthen your applications. Community foundations focus on supporting local communities and often grassroots initiatives. They prioritise projects with a clear local impact. Specialist trusts support specific, often niche causes, focusing on one or two main areas. They can have a more in-depth application criteria for you to consider, and usually a more formal application process. National trusts often offer large multi-year grants and have a more formalised application process with one or more stages, which can be very competitive. Let's have a closer look at those different types of funders and some of the key players you might come across. As I mentioned before, understanding the different types of trust funders and their motivations can really help when you're starting to research which trusts would be the best fit for your organisation. Family trusts, such as the Esme Fairbairn Foundation or the Tudor Trust, often have a unique ethos that's been shaped by the experiences and values of their founders. These funders often value organisations that are community-led, forward-thinking, and have a strong vision for social change, often in the areas the founders grew up in. Corporate foundations like the Lloyds Bank Foundation or Barclays Community Fund are funded by companies as part of their social responsibility. They often focus on issues aligned with their brand values and are particularly interested in demonstrating measurable outcomes that reflect positively on the company. There are 47 accredited community foundations across the UK. Grants are distributed according to the particular needs of the local area or region in which the foundation is based. They're usually looking to build long-term relationships and partnerships to address local problems. You probably have a community foundation near you, and they're definitely worth talking to about their funding opportunities. Specialist trusts, such as the Arts Council or the Wellcome Trust, focus on a specific area of work. If your mission aligns with their priorities, they can be a fantastic partner, but your application needs to reflect expertise and understanding in their field. And finally, large national funders like the National Lottery Community Fund or Comic Relief have the capacity to fund large-scale multi-year projects and support wide-reaching social change. You're more likely to have heard of these funders, which makes obtaining funding from them more competitive. Before we move on, let's take a quick look at the trust fundraising landscape to give you some context as to where things are at the moment. I can tell you, after working in the sector for nearly 20 years, things are always evolving, and that's been no different over the last few years. Back in 2022, trust funding continued to play a vital role in supporting charitable organisations, with over 13,000 UK funders awarding more than £20 billion in funding. The majority of these funders were smaller grant makers, yet their collective impact was vast. However, the sector was facing significant challenges: a cost of living crisis, increased demand for services, increased operational costs, and political instability. Trust funders responded with high levels of giving, but were also experiencing increased pressure themselves, with applications rising by 20 to 30% on average, making the trust fundraising landscape increasingly competitive, something we're all still experiencing today. As a result, many funders are now reframing their strategies, with some pausing or even closing their programs. And although this seems like a daily occurrence at the moment, these closures represent less than 5% of all trust funders, so there is still opportunity out there. These changes just mean we have to really do our research into funders' priorities and make sure our organisations' projects really align with what they want to achieve with their funding. Time for a power pause. These are a quick chance for you to pause and think about a key element of what you've just heard. The trust fundraising landscape is always evolving. While competition is high, thousands of funders still provide opportunities. Success comes from understanding their priorities and finding the right fit for your organisation. Try not to feel down about all the negativity around trust fundraising at the moment. Like I said, the trust fundraising landscape is constantly evolving, and there are still opportunities out there if you put the right plan in place. So, where do we start with that plan? You might think we're going to jump right in with where to identify potential trusts. But before you start looking for funders, the first essential step is to clearly define the projects you need funding for. Starting by defining your projects ensures that when you begin your search, you'll know exactly what kinds of funders to look for and whether they align with your needs. On the screen are some key questions you can ask yourself when looking for fundable projects, such as: which of our activities can be turned into fundable projects? What are the financial needs of the organisation? Could these be packaged into fundable projects? Do our projects have clear, definable goals and measurable impact? But what really makes a project fundable? In simple terms, funders generally prefer to support restricted funding, meaning they want to see their money used for a specific project, not just for general running costs. Unrestricted funding, which can be spent freely, is much harder to secure. That said, many funders will allow a small percentage of overheads as part of a well-defined project budget. Some larger funders even specify the percentage of overheads they're willing to fund, so pay close attention to this when you're looking at their guidelines. To make your project fundable, ensure it aligns with your organisation's vision and mission. Funders are more likely to support projects that directly contribute to your core purpose. But it's not just about alignment. Your project should be structured, time-bound, and have measurable outcomes. Funders want to know what difference your project will make for your beneficiaries. They want to see and be part of this difference, have a real impact with their funding, and be part of a longer-term legacy. One of the most important things you can do is involve your beneficiaries in the project design process. By doing this, you ensure your project reflects their real needs and you demonstrate to funders that you're genuinely listening to the people you serve. After all, they are and should be part of the solution. Make sure you know who your beneficiaries are and the problems they're facing. Do you have any internal statistical data about them or their situations that might help define the problem you're trying to solve? This will also help when you think about how your activities or projects feed into the solution. What information do you have or could you gather to show the difference you'll make? To go with these statistics, think also about the stories behind the numbers, testimonials and case studies that show the real, true face of your work, that will put the potential funders in your beneficiaries' shoes. For a project to be persuasive, it also needs to show financial viability. This means you'll need a realistic budget to back up your proposal. Some funders offer capital grants for things like equipment or vehicles, so think about these needs when creating your budget. It's also critical to work closely with your service delivery and finance teams to ensure your project is both realistic and financially sound. Their input will help shape a project that is feasible and sustainable. Speaking of sustainability, funders are increasingly asking, what happens when the funding ends? This doesn't just mean the environmental impact. You'll need to consider whether your project can continue beyond the grant period. Funders are much more likely to back projects that leave a lasting legacy, whether through volunteers continuing the work or the long-term impact your project has on the community. Before we move on, I want to emphasise one last thing that I feel really strongly about, that trust fundraisers should be involved in the design of any project that is intended to be fundable. Having a fundraising perspective ensures the project is tailored with funders in mind, improving its chances of success. If you're interested in diving deeper into project design for trust fundraisers, I've put together an on-demand webinar just like this one on that very topic, which will give you tips and strategies to transform your projects and give your proposals the best chance of success. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit our website www.moneytreefundraising.co.uk. In step 1, we explored the importance of understanding your organisation, your mission, activities, funding needs, and the challenges you're addressing. Now that we've gathered this information, we can take the next step, which isn't researching trusts. It's shaping all this brilliant information into a case for support. Your case for support is a clear, structured, and compelling document that translates your work in a way that funders can quickly understand. It explains who you are, what you do, and why their support is vital to your mission. When researching potential funders, having a well-crafted case for support will act as your guiding document, ensuring that all your trust applications present a consistent and persuasive message. Think of your case for support as your trust fundraising toolkit. It's the go-to resource you'll adapt for every application, meaning you won't be reinventing the wheel each time you're seeking funding. When you're researching trusts, you can tailor the core information of your case for support to align with the funder's priorities, giving you a much clearer sense of the types of funders that will best support your projects. This step not only helps streamline your fundraising process, but also positions you to conduct more targeted and efficient research. It ensures you'll be focusing your time and energy on those trusts that are a strong fit for your organisation's needs and priorities. Now let's tackle the all-important question. What goes into a case for support? A strong case for support is more than just a document. It tells a logical, compelling story that helps funders understand why your project is important and worth their investment. Here's where the preparation from step 1 really comes into play. You've already laid the groundwork, and now you can translate that into a coherent case. Start with your vision and mission in the introduction. This sets the stage for everything that follows, explaining who you are and why you exist. The problem you identified in step 1 when defining your organization's purpose feeds into the need. This is where you highlight the challenges or gaps your project aims to address. The fundable projects you've identified become your solution. This is where you detail the work you're doing to tackle the problem and explain how your project will make a real difference. Your beneficiary insights, data, and testimonials from step 1 strengthen your project's impact and provide the evidence funders need to see the real-world effect of your work. Finally, the financial planning and budgets you developed earlier feed directly into your budget and funding ask. Be sure to clearly outline the amount you're requesting and what that funding will achieve. Each of these sections works closely together to create a clear and persuasive story, one that showcases not just what you're doing, but why it matters and how funding will enable you to make a lasting impact. This is a really important document for you to have ready before you start researching trusts, so you can refer back to it when looking to see if your project aligns with a funder's priorities. Before we move on, let's take a few moments to pause and reflect on what we've just discussed. This is a critical point in your research journey, as your case for support will guide your entire trust fundraising strategy. Grab a piece of paper and a pen or a new document sheet on your computer and think about these questions right now. 1. Does your organization have a defined vision and mission? 2. Do you have a clear understanding of what problem or need your organization addresses? 3. Does your organization have fundable projects with clear outcomes that have involved your beneficiaries in their design? 4. Have you gathered impact evidence, testimonials, data, and case studies to demonstrate your project's effectiveness? 5. Do you have a clear understanding of your financial needs and budget for the project? Pause the video now and restart when you're ready to continue. Thanks for pausing and reflecting on these questions. I hope when you look back on the answers later, they'll make writing or reviewing your case for support easier, ensuring that it's solid, structured, and ready to adapt to potential funders' interests. Once you have your case for support, you can use this document to help you create a simple bullet point funding priorities checklist, which will guide you when identifying the right funders that align with your project. This checklist ensures you're focusing on the key areas that will make or break the sustainability. This checklist ensures you're focusing on the key areas that will make or break the suitability of a potential funder. By extracting specific details, you'll have a checklist that helps you quickly assess whether a potential funder is a good fit for your project. Think of it as a guide that helps you filter out funders that don't align with your project's core elements. Here's how to break it down. 1. Purpose and mission of your project. From your case for support, extract the core mission and purpose of your project. This is the why behind what you're doing. 2. Who are your beneficiaries? From your case for support, identify the primary group or community that will benefit from the project. This could be a specific age group, geographic community, or a certain demographic. For example, if you're working on a project for elderly people, you'll need to find funders that support older age groups, not funders that focus on youth or children. 3. Geographical location of your project. From your case for support, clearly define where the project will take place. Is it a city, a region, national? This will help you focus on potential funders that support your specific geographical area. There's no point focus on funders that support national projects. Yours is specific to a certain city or county. 4. Grant size and financial needs. From your case for support, extract the financial needs of your project, including the total cost and a breakdown of these costs into fundable elements. This will help you to see how much you need to be asking for and whether potential funder provide grants that align with your project's financial needs. 5. Eligibility criteria. From your case for support, identify the key aspects that define your organization. This could be whether you're a charity or a CIC and the size of your income. For instance, if you're a CIC, you need to ensure the funder accepts applications from your type of organisation. If your income is above a certain level, £1 million for example, check if the funder supports larger organisations. 6. Application process and readiness. From your case for support, ensure you have all the necessary documents and processes in place to apply. This could include audited accounts, project plans, references, etc. If you're missing any required documents, like your audited accounts, that might be a barrier to some funders. 7. Project timeline and deadlines. From your case for support, define your project's start date, timeline, and the critical milestones. Some funders may have specific deadlines or may only be available to fund projects at certain times of the year, so you need to check if that fits with your own project and their timelines. 8. Impact fit. From your case for support, clearly define what the desired impact of your project will be. How will you measure success? What changes will the project bring? For example, if your project aims to improve elderly care, you can look for funders focused on healthcare, social care, or senior welfare. Now you have a clear understanding of what you need funding for, we can move on to identifying potential funders. At last. What we've discussed might seem like a lot of legwork, but it really does help with the research process, as it's absolutely key to match the potential funder to your project, not your project to the potential funder. Don't fundamentally change your project to make it fit a funder's priorities. Simple, superficial changes to demonstrate how your project fits or could fit are fine, but you need to demonstrate your own expertise in this funding area. Using stories and statistical data from your own work, a good track record demonstrates credibility. Bending your project to fit will stand out a mile to funders. There are plenty of trusts out there and plenty of places to look, which can be really overwhelming. You need to take a methodical approach and work through every potential opportunity to discover those funders that will be the best fit for your project against the funder's priorities. Online grant directories such as Funds Online, the GRIN database, or Grant Finder are great tools with searchable databases and lots of information, although these often require a subscription, so what you invest in will depend on your budget. The Charity Excellence Framework is a free expanding database that I would recommend anyone using to get some baseline information of potential funders to inform your own research. The Charity Commission website itself, or the OSCR if you're in Scotland, is another useful resource. You can often look up organisations similar to yours and see who's funded them. You can also access a potential funder's accounts, which are a wealth of information about what they support, who to contact, and the level of grant they're likely to give. Some trusts make it easy to find them with detailed websites outlining their priorities, eligibility criteria, and application process. Others, especially smaller family trusts, operate without an online presence, meaning you have to dig deeper to find any relevant details. If a funder does have their own website, it's worth keeping an eye on this and their social media pages. Many trusts post updates about funding rounds, priority areas, and any changes to their application processes. Attending network events and meet the funder sessions are also really valuable. You can ask funders direct questions and get insights that might not be available elsewhere. Finally, don't forget about your existing funders. If you've had support from a trust before, could they fund you again? Lapsed funders may also be worth re-engaging after a period of time. Time for another quick power pause. It's really important to know your project inside and out, which is why it's so vital to be involved in the design process. Keep your mission, beneficiaries, and project in mind when you're identifying and researching potential funders. Now that you know where to look, it's time to refine your search. The number of trusts out there can be really overwhelming, so rather than spreading yourself too thin, focus on trusts that directly align with your mission and the project you're seeking funding for. To do this, utilise filters in databases like Funds Online to search for funders by geographical region, grant size, or area of interest. This will ensure you're focusing your efforts where they'll have the most impact. You don't need a huge list of funders to get you started, just 10 or 20 really researched trusts that are potentially aligned with your organisation and your project. You can build your own trust database that you've researched over time. Once you've narrowed down your search field, it's time to start more in-depth research on those that appear to align with your organisation, projects, and their mission. Start by looking at their funding priorities. Does your work fit within their focus areas? Then check their funding history. If they've funded projects like yours before, that's a really good sign. Next, consider their grant sizes. If they usually give out £5,000 grants and you need £100,000 for your project, they might not be the best fit. Or you might need to consider if they would part fund your project, particularly if you've secured match funding, and whether you could make applications to multiple funders. This is why having a clear budget is really important, as you can work with your finance team to pick out lower value but vital elements of your project that you could package for lower asks, but would still demonstrate real impact to the funder. You then need to check their eligibility criteria and restrictions. Some funders only support registered charities, or only fund in a specific geographical area. Some will only fund small organisations and are very specific about income levels, so maybe income of under 100,000, for example. Finally, look at their application process. Is the funder open all year round, or are there specific deadlines? Is there an online application, or does the funder require a written, offline application? Doing this level of research will save you time in the long run, helping you focus on funders who are the best fit for your projects. When a trust has a website, researching what makes them tick is so much easier. But the key is to go beyond just checking eligibility. You need to understand how they make decisions and what they're really looking for. Look at their funding priorities. Do they align with your work? Does the project you're seeking funding for create the outcomes and impacts they want to see? Look at their past grants. Have they funded organisations like yours before? At what financial level? Was it a one-off gift, or do they regularly support projects like yours? Look at their application guidelines. Do they accept unsolicited applications? What's the process? Do they have restrictions on the type of organisation they'll fund? For example, registered charities only, or small organisations under a certain income threshold. Many trusts share stories about the projects they've supported. These can offer valuable insights into the type of work they prioritise and fund. Check the names of trustees and see if your organisation has any existing connections. A warm introduction can go a long way. If not, does the trust provide a phone number or email? If so, reach out before applying. Ask any questions about their fund and processes. Try to avoid those that are already listed on their website, and introduce them to your project in advance. If you can pick up the phone and do them, be brave and do it. If a funder has a website, use all these elements to ensure your project is a strong fit for their priorities. If you're a good fit, doing all this groundwork will make your application so much more compelling and save you time in the long run. Time for another quick power pause. Many organisations focus only on high-profile funders, but some of the best opportunities lie within the smaller, lesser-known trusts. If you invest the time in researching them properly, you put yourself ahead of the competition. Not every trust makes it easy to find them. Some funders, especially smaller family trusts, don't have websites or social media. They may not actively promote their grant making, but still distribute significant amounts of funding each year. So how do you find information on them? One of the best tools available is the Charity Commission website, or OSCR for Scotland. You can use their search criteria to bring up a list of all the trusts registered within them that fall into those specific categories. From there, you can access their unique records, which detail information about each trust, and you can tell who they funded before, so you can see if they're supporting organisations similar to yours, how much they typically give, so you can understand average grant sizes, help set expectations, who the trustees are. This can help you identify networking opportunities and warm connections. How to contact them. Most trusts will list an address, but some will also give an email or telephone number. Another great way to uncover funders is to look at organisations similar to yours. Who's funded them in the past? Many charities list their funders in annual reports or on their websites. Networking is also key. Speaking with your colleagues in the sector, attending funder briefings, or being part of fundraising networks can help you discover hidden trusts that don't widely advertise their funding. If I can do a little bit of self-promotion here, I'd really recommend you joining the Trust Fundraising Hub on Facebook. It's a wealth of knowledge and a great way for you to speak to your peers. Doing all this extra research means you won't miss out on valuable opportunities just because a funder doesn't have an online presence. The information is out there, you just need to know where to look. Whether the trust has a website or not, interpreting a trust's accounts can provide vital insights into their funding behaviour, priorities, and whether your project is a good fit against their priorities. But where do you find this information? Step 1 is to locate the trust's accounts. Visit the Charity Commission website or OSCR for Scotland, search for the trust name or charity number, scroll down to financial history and download their most recent accounts. Step 2 is to identify the key information. Look at the grants payable section. Are they supporting charities like yours? What are the typical grant sizes that they make? Do some sectors, like elderly or health, for example, receive more funding than others? This helps you tailor your funding requests to match their giving levels. The trustees' report often outlines their funding priorities and any recent changes. Some will also specify if they accept applications or only give to known charities and what their application process is. Applications only by email, for example. Check their income and expenditure to ensure they're still actively giving, or whether they mention that they're slowing down their grant making or focusing on supporting specific sectors. Step 3. Watch out for red flags. If a trust's income has significantly dropped, they may have fewer funds to distribute, so be mindful of this when thinking about how much to ask for. This is also a good reason to reach out to a trust, introduce yourself, and ask about their grant giving at the same time. If no grants have been given in the last year or two, they may not be open for applications or may be taking a funding break. This is where insights from a warm trustee connection would really help. Otherwise, if their contact information is available, reach out to the trust and ask them. By taking the time to analyse a trust's accounts, you can avoid wasted applications and target the right funders with well-matched proposals. Now we've covered funder research, let's put this into practice with a research challenge. Instead of finding a real funder, I'm going to give you a fictional charity and a fictional trust funder. Your task is to assess whether this charity should apply for funding from this trust, and if so, how do you think they should position their application? So, the fictional charity is the Green Futures Youth. They're a small environmental charity that runs after-school sustainability clubs for 11 to 16-year-olds. They provide workshops on climate action, run local tree planting initiatives, and support young people to become environmental ambassadors. They need £15,000 to expand their reach into 5 new schools. The fictional trust funder is the Eco Change Foundation, who provides grants of up to £25,000 for organisations that improve biodiversity and reduce carbon emissions. They prioritise community-based projects that focus on measurable environmental impact. They don't typically fund general youth work, but are interested in projects where young people play an active role in environmental action. So as you ponder this one, ask yourself, would this charity be a good fit for this trust funder? What aspects of the charity's work aligns with the trust priorities? How could the charity strengthen its case for support to appeal to this funder? Pause the video now and take a few minutes to ponder this one. There's no wrong or right answer, it's just to get you thinking. Once you're ready, press play and rejoin us. So the aim of this exercise was to highlight the importance of carefully assessing a funder before applying. A near match might mean rethinking how you present your project, or it might indicate that your time is best spent elsewhere. This is the kind of strategic thinking you need in order to maximize your chance of securing funding and ensuring you're investing your time wisely. Now that you've identified some potential trust funders, the next step is to prioritize them. Not all trust funders should be applied to in the same way, so take your time to consider your next steps carefully. Some will require more relationship building than others. A useful approach is to categorize your funders into 4 groups: warm, lapsed, lukewarm, and cold. Warm funders are those who have already supported you. They already know and trust your organization, making them the most likely to fund you again. These should be your first priority. Lapsed funders are trusts that have funded you in the past but haven't done so recently. They may be open to funding you again, particularly if you can demonstrate the impact of their previous support. Lukewarm funders are those whose priorities align well with your own projects, but you have no prior relationship with them and have received no funding from them. It may be that you have a link to them via a trustee that you could leverage, so they'll require more research and some careful engagement before an application. Cold funders. These are newly identified funders that have no connection to you or your organisation. You'll likely need to do some more groundwork or research, such as attending webinars, following their social media, or networking to build awareness before applying. When deciding who to approach first, start at the top of the list. Warm and lapsed funders are more likely to be engaged, and you'll have a higher percentage of success. Meanwhile, lukewarm and cold funders will need more time and will be less likely, but not unlikely, to support your project, depending on how well you fit with their priorities. It's all about being strategic with your time and focusing on funders where you have the strongest chance first. Put them in a list, whether that's storing the information on your CRM database or in a simple spreadsheet, placing them in order of who you should apply to first to last. Bear in mind your relationship with them, how well you fit their funding priorities and criteria, as well as when their application deadlines might be, so you don't miss any opportunities. Once you've done your research, keeping track of your findings is essential. Whether it's a CRM system or a simple spreadsheet, making sure you're recording key details like funding priorities, deadlines, and any grant size information. Regularly review and update your research. Trusts can change their focus areas, introduce new criteria, or even close. I think it's also worth mentioning here, as you get closer to making applications, that it's important to manage expectations internally. Trust fundraising is a long game. Many funders take 6 to 8 months or more to make decisions. Some may never respond at all. This can be frustrating, but it's absolutely normal in the trust fundraising world. Try not to take it to heart. Finally, don't underestimate the power of connections. If you have a link to a trustee or a previous grant maker, this could help open doors. Even if a funder doesn't formally accept unsolicited applications, a warm introduction can sometimes make all the difference. If you don't have a CRM system to keep track of all your research, a simple spreadsheet can work just as well. Setting up a funder research template will help you track key details and make sure you're recording the same information for every opportunity. This helps you to streamline and prioritize, and also means you have all the information at your fingertips if you're asked about a particular trust by a manager or trustee. You'll have all the research to hand, ready to respond. Your template should include funder name and key details, basic information such as their name, location, and website if they have one, or a link to their OCSR or the Charity Commission page if not. Also include the names of any trustees so you can check for warm connections, the size of grants awarded or grant range, plus an idea of how much you could ask for. Why they might fund us. Include a brief note on how their priorities align with your project. Add key steps to apply and any submission deadlines. And then add next steps and relationship plan, how you'll approach them, warm-up actions, or any warm connections you might already have. If you don't have a CRM, you can also use this spreadsheet to help you keep track of trusts you've applied to and the outcomes of those applications. Even if you do have a CRM, I like to keep a spreadsheet copy of my research in a simple, easily accessible place. Having this information in one central place will save you time and help you prioritise the most promising funders at a glance. The key is to keep this information up to date. Add in any new information you come across and research any potential trusts before you make another application, just in case their priorities or application process has changed. Time for another quick power pause. Good research and tracking that information is the basis of trust fundraising success. Efficiently tracking and managing your funder research will help you stay organised, avoid missing deadlines, and focus on the best fit funders for your projects. Regularly review and update your research. Trusts can change their focus, introduce new criteria, or even close. Once you've done your research and prioritised your potential funder list, one of the most important next steps is to reach out to the trust funder, especially if the opportunity is competitive. Pre-application contact can help you gauge whether you really are a good fit against the trust priorities, clarify any uncertainties, and even strengthen your application by making yourself and your project known to the trust's key contact. With smaller trusts who maybe don't have their own website, this could even be a key trustee. By reaching out before replying, you get a clear understanding of the funder's priorities, eligibility criteria, and the likelihood of success. This gives you a chance to tailor your application to meet their specific needs. You may even get the chance to talk about your specific project, get a wider understanding of the trust priorities, and as I've mentioned before, making yourself and your project known to a trust in a positive way is never a bad thing. So what's the best way to approach a trust? Firstly, be very sure through your research that they don't specifically state you cannot reach out to them. In these cases, it's always best to respect their wishes. It could be that they're a very small trust and just don't have the admin capacity to answer lots of questions. However, if a trust funder's contact details are freely available and they don't specifically say you can't contact them, please do. This can either be by telephone or email, whichever you feel comfortable with, although I would always try calling them if I can. Start by introducing yourself, your organisation, and your project. Ask any clarification questions you want to know the answer to. Sometimes this can be as simple as clarifying the application process or asking when the trustees next meet. This is particularly important if the trust doesn't have a website. You want to fit in with their timelines and processes to give your application the best chance of success. Be concise. Keep your message clear and to the point. Trust funders are busy, so respect their time. Always approach them politely and professionally. By reaching out to a trust before you make an application, you can ensure your project fits within their funding strategy. It allows you to gain clarity on any restrictions or nuances in the application process and creates an opportunity to build rapport with the funder, potentially making your application stand out. Remember, a warm introduction can make a huge difference, so don't hesitate to take that first step, even if it feels really scary at first. Some trusts have a clear no unsolicited applications policy, and it's crucial to respect that. If they explicitly state no contact, don't reach out directly. However, some trusts that prefer to find their own funding opportunities and so don't accept applications do often allow you to send in an expression of interest. An expression of interest is a short, impactful submission that includes a brief overview of your project and an outline of the budget or financial ask. The goal is to catch the trust's interest and be invited to submit a full application. The key to a good expression of interest is to be clear and concise, showing how any funding you received would be impactful to your beneficiaries. If the trust has a strict no to contact of any kind and won't accept applications or expression of interest, there are still ways to stand out. Attending networking events and funder sessions is an excellent way to build relationships and increase your organization's visibility. Engage in conversations, ask insightful questions, and get yourself known by the funder. Additionally, make sure your website and social media showcase your projects, their impact, and the need for funding. Use key terms that might resonate with funders, buzzwords that they might be looking for when conducting their own research. If you've identified a particular funder that you think is a good fit but can't apply to, use language from their own website in your social media and on your website. Demonstrate why your work's vital and relevant to their priorities. You can also explore opportunities like joining industry panels relevant to your charity work, looking to see if there are any awards you could go for in your field of expertise, or any groups you could join that align with your mission, all with the purpose of boosting your visibility. Don't forget, trustee connections can make a significant difference, so if you have any links to their trustees, use that as a way in for a meeting or an application. I hope by now that you can see that trust fundraising isn't just about applying for funding and moving on. It's about building relationships. While trusts don't always expect or want the same level of engagement as individuals or major donors, they value connection and transparency. Strong relationships can lead to renewed funding. Many trusts prefer to support projects they know and trust. Increased funding. As confidence grows, so might the size of the grant you receive. Better communication. Funders might be more likely to talk to you about new projects at their developmental stage. Taking the time to engage with funders ensures they feel invested in your project's success and the impact it will have. A successful fundraising strategy isn't just about securing a one-time grant. It's about building long-term relationships where possible. You want to be able to build a pipeline that contains multi-year grants, or have funders you know that will support you more than once. To help build those long-term relationships, I'd recommend using the 7 stages of donor engagement, which you can see on the screen. Let's take a look at each one. Identify. As you know, we start with researching and compiling a list of potential funders that align with our organisation and the projects you're seeking funding for. Qualify. Not every funder is a good fit. We assess their priorities, average grant size, etc. before investing time in an application. Approach. Some trusts welcome initial contact. If appropriate, we might email or call to ask some clarifying questions. Cultivate. Trusts do value relationships, so engaging with them by attending webinars or meet the funders helps build rapport. Ask, the application stage. Thank. Saying thank you for a successful grant is so crucial, and you'd be surprised how many times I've heard this doesn't happen. Even if your application wasn't successful, thanking a funder for their time and consideration keeps the door open. Steward. Ongoing engagement is key. Receiving a grant is just the beginning. Sharing impact reports, inviting funders to project visits, and keeping them informed sets you up for future funding opportunities. If we only engage with funders at the ask stage, we miss opportunities to build meaningful connections. My tip would be to add these engagement stages to your CRM or as a column on your spreadsheet, so you can move them through the steps and see at a glance where you are with a funder. A well-managed trust fundraising pipeline ensures better success rates and stronger, longer-term relationships. So as we're nearing the end of this session, I wanted to wrap up everything we've covered with the 5 most important takeaways. Number 1, before you do anything, clarify your project's mission and needs by defining your objectives, beneficiaries, budget, and timeline. Number 2, good research is the basis to everything. Identify and filter the right funders by aligning their priorities with your project's focus, and use resources like grant directories, Charity Commission, or OSCR to help with this process. Number 3, create a funding priorities checklist to ensure that your project matches the funder's eligibility, application process, grant size, and desired impact. Number 4, build relationships and network with potential funders to improve your chances of success. Even if a trust doesn't accept unsolicited applications, there may still be a way to make your projects more visible, a chance to submit an expression of interest, or a warmer way in via a trustee contact. Number 5, be patient and proactive. Trust fundraising can take many months to see results. Continue researching, reviewing, and reframing your prospect list. growing your own database of potential funders. When you're just starting out, trust prospecting can seem really overwhelming. So here are some quick wins, practical, simple actions you can take in the next week to start putting all of this into practice. These don't require a full strategy overhaul, just small, manageable steps that will set you up for success. Number 1, clarify your project needs. Pick one project you know you need funding for. Either refine your case for support to make sure it hits all the points we've discussed, or create a simple one-page summary of your project to get you started. Number 2, use this document to create your funding priority checklist. Based on your project's needs, list out all the key factors to look for when researching funders, such as grant size, eligibility, and geographical focus. This will help you filter and prioritize your projects more effectively. And number 3, start identifying potential funders. Use free resources like the Charity Excellence Framework, the Charity Commission website, or the OSCR to research funders who might align with your project. To start with, identify no more than 10 potential funders that you will then research more thoroughly in readiness to make contact. You can set yourself a goal to carry out detailed research on at least 3 of those a week, but more if time allows. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you found this webinar really useful. If you have any questions or you'd like to find out more about monetary fundraising and how we can help your trust fundraising, particularly in this challenging landscape, please reach out to us via any of the methods shown on the screen here. I also run a monthly live Let's Chat Trust Fundraising Q&A, and I'd love you to join us. There's more information here, or you can visit our website to find out more. Thanks. Look forward to seeing you.